In this video, we'll be considering requirements, needs, and constraints and the differences between them. Now let's have a look at them. Firstly, we have needs, and these needs are typically capabilities that are in the language and formulated by the business. And so they're typically provided by business management or maybe senior management, and they say these are our business needs, these are the things that we're trying to solve. And that would be found in the B&R document, the Business Needs and Requirements document. Or they might be formulated by the operations team, the stakeholders that are actually dealing with these things, the operators, the finance, the procurers, or all of those sort of people that might be involved. Now, requirements takes that a step further. So they're formal structured statements that can be validated against something. So rather than just saying we want this to be inexpensive, we say in our requirements that the final system must be less than a certain figure, and that's something that we can actually validate, as opposed to inexpensive, because what in the world is inexpensive? Inexpensive for a car might be $10,000, but inexpensive for a house might be $500,000. There's a huge difference there. And we may have multiple requirements for each stated need within our system. So a customer says something about their need, and later on we'll look at the way we actually write requirements. We actually only want one validation thing and one object per actual requirement. So we might have several requirements to fulfill each need. And the job of systems engineers is they're trying to seek out all those needs and create requirements to fulfill those particular needs that our stakeholders and our business actually wants. So what then is a requirement? A requirement's a statement, and a statement that can go three different ways. So a statement that a system must do something, so some sort of a system service. So for example, that system service might be it must fly, drive, print, shred, whatever it happens to be. A verb that's actually doing something. A requirement might be a statement of a quality or attribute that the system must possess. For example, shockproof, waterproof, can work at low temperature, high pressure, whatever it may be. Must be read. Who knows what that particular requirement may refer to. And then finally, it might be a constraint on how the system either must operate or how it must be developed. One area here that might be the case is if it's some sort of a defense project, well, there'll probably be defense requirements related to document handling and management of documents and document keeping, and security of those documents. So I've worked in the past at a defense contractor, and they've got a special lock space that if you go into that space, you must have clearance to go in there. You must have someone that guides you around the area, and you must check in your mobile phone and any recording devices before you go into that room, and then you can check them out after you come out of that room. And their requirements stipulated by the customer in this circumstance, the Australian Department of Defence, that this is how the contractor must develop the system. So requirements are specific properties or functions the system must possess in order to be effective in its mission. And typically we write them in the form of the system must do this. The system must be waterproof to a standard of IP65. The system must be able to print at 30 pages per minute, for example. You note both of those had validation criteria associated with them. IP65 being the standard, 30 pages per minute being the validation standard for our verb there. Well, we have two different ways we can group requirements as well. And typically we can group them as functional requirements or non-functional requirements. And functional requirements are those services and functions the system needs to provide. For example, print, drive, shoot, copy, shred, whatever it be. Those sort of verbs that we had there, the system must perform some sort of a functionality or service. Then we have our non-functional requirements, and they're typically attributes and some sort of a quality that's assigned to the system that it needs to possess. For example, being inexpensive, with some sort of proviso around how inexpensive. Must be waterproof, must be shockproof, must be bulletproof, must be intrinsically safe, all those sort of things. Then we have those constraints, that third category we looked at before, and we typically say that those constraints would be considered non-functional requirements because they don't specifically provide a function or service to the final system.